All right, how's it going? I'm Eric Kane. I'm back with a new recording setup. I'm going to try this out today, see how it works. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the Rings of Power. There was an interesting article in the Hollywood Reporter. Some interesting tidbits from that. One, which I thought, which really leapt out at me, I guess, is the idea that Amazon won the bid from the Tolkien estate for the rights because of their fidelity to Tolkien. I don't know if the Tolkien estate is just, rolling around in so much money that they are ignoring just how many ways this show has departed from anything even remotely resembling fidelity to Tolkien. Almost none of the storylines or characters have any actual bearing on Tolkien's work. The Mithril storyline in the Elrond Durin bits has kind of ruined that, and that was one of the best parts of the show. And I still like these characters, but this conflict over the Mithril and the idea that Mithril will somehow inject the elves with more magic or something is pretty silly. It's like their vaccine or something. And then just everything they've done with Gil-galad and making him so manipulative and tricking Elrond and asking Elrond to break his oath and everything else. So not a big fan of that. Then there's Galadriel, which, we've spoken about Galadriel enough, but her character is completely ruined. They've made Middle-earth feel small. Numenor feels small. And to what end, I'm not sure. They have a 5-season arc planned out, but they've stumbled so poorly in the first season that I'm just not sure. I'm going to keep watching, obviously, and it's great fun to talk about. Unfortunately, it's not great fun to watch. There's some other interesting tidbits here. Asked what they've learned since that first season, they're now applying to the second. McKay, one of the showrunners, is candid. That could be an answer that takes an hour, he says. The entire making of this show has been a massive learning experience for everyone involved. We had no idea what we were getting into. No one else did either. Well, that's reassuring. And also not surprising. One thing that they do talk about in this is that these guys, J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay, are not experienced showrunners. They have virtually no writing credits. They went up against much more experienced candidates and somehow walked away because they must be very good pitch makers. They mentioned they'd written a bunch of movies that never got made, which is not a great. that's not even a humble brag. That's just not a great thing to sort of broadcast. They also mentioned that they worked with J.J. Abrams in the past, and he put in a good word for them. So that's interesting. J.J. Abrams worming his way into every single possible fandom and making it more like what Abrams likes, which unfortunately is not particularly Tolkien-esque. They talk about the backlash, and they say that it's not a cash grab. It's just, and I'm sure it's not. Whatever. Who cares really? It's Amazon has enough money that they don't need the cash. This is really a status thing for Jeff Bezos, right? He wants his own newspaper. He wants his own AAA tentpole fantasy series, not to compete directly with Game of Thrones, but to be even bigger and better than Game of Thrones, which of course it's not. Interestingly, the showrunners for Game of Thrones were also super inexperienced, but they took a much more, at least at first, a much more serious and true to the source material approach, as are the House of the Dragon showrunners, I would say. Our showrunner now, since Miguel Sapochnik has left. Many point out, they talk about fans being like, I'm sick of being called racist for this. Now, obviously, some fans are racist, but a lot of fans are being sort of brushed aside with those racism stuff. They're saying, well, no, they don't like it because of the race. And that's, while some people, maybe that's true, I think for a lot of people, it's because it's poorly written and abandons everything Tolkien stood for. Many point out HBO's House of the Dragon faced similar trolling for its diversity moves, yet its audience scores weren't impacted. But it's also possible Ring's percentage of agenda-based reviews might be much higher than for Dragon. Notice this is just a total guess. It might be higher percentage of agenda. No no evidence of this. Just make, it could be that there's more agenda-driven trolls in the Rings community. Tolkien's world has a long, unfortunate history of attracting fascist-adjacent admirers, something that surely would have repulsed the fantasy world's anti-totalitarian author, whose Rings trilogy was inspired by the horrors of World War I. Italy's newly elected far-right nationalist leader Giorgia Meloni, for example, has been an outspoken Tolkien fan, unhelpfully. Stop liking Tolkien, fascists, Italians, everybody in Italy, can just stop. So Tolkien was a conservative, let's just point that out. A very, very conservative man. Now, he was eclectic and kind of hilarious. I've noted before that he has, when he would go to mass and he would loudly read in Latin and say everything in Latin, because he was fully opposed to the Catholic Church getting rid of Latin as its standard in mass. And I don't know a lot about all of that. I mean, I do, but I've forgotten all the dates and like when that happened, and Vatican I and Vatican II and all that stuff. So I'm not going to go into that, but it is funny, and it shows you kind of what a sort of one example of him being a staunch sort of conservative guy, but also, of course, not fascist. I mean, he was very anti-Hitler, of course. I read one of the best articles I've read about Tolkien was that he's an anarcho-monarchist. So the Shire being his ideal society is like a self-governed place that has a distant king that everyone sort of vaguely knows about, and that's good to have the king. And there's an army somewhere out there protecting the land, but you just sort of do your own thing and nobody really bothers you. You don't have government looming over you all the time. You take care of yourself. You mind your own business. You don't go stomping into other people's business, and you smoke your pipe and eat your food and have your parties. Tolkien was a big partier. I'm getting sidetracked. Point being, yeah, he was anti-fascist, if you want to call it that. But he was not like progressive by any means. And so, yeah, I mean, fascist adjacent is such an odd term. What does that really mean? Are just conservatives fascist adjacent? What about some of the hardcore progressives have fascist leanings? When politics gets so complicated with this sort of thing. So I would just say that this is bullshit. that every fantasy and every big thing. I mean, there's fascists who like Marvel comics. Who gives a shit? Who gives a shit what the fans like or what the fans don't like? This is like that. I made a video about Elden Ring the other day about how, and this author who was writing about how From Software has problematic women. They write problematic women, and half that article is spent talking about fan reactions to the women. And it's like, what does this matter? It's about the game, not the fans' reaction to the game. I mean, clearly there are exceptions to that, but by and large, if fans are reacting to millennia with sexist, gendered insults, that's not From Software's fault, unless you just don't put women in the games at all, and then we can solve that problem right there. But yeah, so I don't know that there's any evidence that there are more fascist adjacent racist trolls trying to bring down the scores for Amazon's Rings of Power. And what bothers me about all these articles we've seen about this lately, and all the ones that quote this article, is that they're very uncritical. They're just like, yeah, like trolls. This is the score for Rings of Power is because of trolls. It's like, there are actual serious criticisms of this show. There are serious critics who wrote very critical pieces. I wasn't by far I was late to the party when it came to harsh criticisms. Like I fully admit, the first 2 episodes I enjoyed. I was very excited about the show at that point. I went in with low expectations, and then every episode since has made me more and more angry. But there were some critics for major outlets who were like, "This is bad" right from the start. Were those people just racists? These serious critics for major publications? Like even the Washington Post, owned by Amazon, was very critical of the first 2 episodes. I feel like the 6th episode won over a lot of like holdouts and critics, but the 6th episode was dog shit. So I don't know why. Maybe some people just get tired of being upset and let down, and they're just like, fuck it, I don't know, battles, cool, volcanoes, yay. Simple. This is very simple. We like to watch things go boom. Anyways, yeah. So, Lord of the Rings of Power. I don't have a lot of hope or faith that the creators of the show are reading or watching criticism of it and learning and taking a lot of it to heart. But maybe I'm wrong. I think I'm just jaded because I've been writing about Fear the Walking Dead for so many years, and every year it's like it gets worse. I swear to God, and The Walking Dead too, I swear to God, none of the people making those shows ever read anything critical of them. They're just like, oh, yep, there's another Eric Kane piece. I'm going to skip that one. Let's go find some fangirl who just loves Carol so much and loves Alicia, and we want Madison, and, it's not really sycophants, but just, if you never pay attention to actual criticism, it's hard for you to get better. Like, I've been reading the comments on this YouTube channel, and people say, do this differently, do that differently. This review was too much summary. This, that was a good criticism. And like, I'm used to recapping when I write reviews, but maybe in a video, I don't need to recap as much. So, anyways, yeah, new camera setup here, and I'm still working out the kinks with that, so bear with me. Thanks for watching, and be sure to like and subscribe and share it with all your friends and family, and yeah, peace.